Hello, my friend. I am so excited to dive into this week's podcast episode for you on January's astrology. Oh my goodness. Happy New Year. January is going to be a very interesting month, and the astrology of 2025 will change your life. If you haven't signed up for my free workshop on the astrology of 2025, then go check that out. Go sign up because that's going to be super juicy. That's going to be super helpful for you to plan ahead. So I'll leave a link to that down below. Yet in this podcast episode, I'll be giving you an overview of January's astrology, some important dates. I will then go into the weekly transits and what you can expect from this week's astrology. If you've missed the new moon in Capricorn podcast episode, go check that out. Go listen to that because we're still feeling that new moon in Capricorn all week. I will then dive into my story for this week, which is how I overcame burnout, what this looked like, and how I just felt more luckier and more magnetic in my career. I will then end off this podcast episode with a tarot reading of what energy to embrace, what energy to let go of. So let's just dive right into it. Now, January's astrology, I want to give you a heads up. It's going to feel a bit wishy-washy. It's going to feel as though we're a bit drained, we're a bit overwhelmed. We could feel like we're not getting as much done as we would like. This is because we're still in the Mars retrograde. Now, let's go into these important dates first. On January 3rd, Venus enters Pisces, switching up how we're showing love and affection collectively. On January 6th, Mars leaves the sign of Leo and retrogrades back into the sign of Cancer. So this is really going to shift things up for us. This is going to feel, I want to say honestly, a bit more uncomfortable. Mars is very uncomfortable in the sign of Cancer, yet it's going to help us get more in tune with our intuition. We are still going to feel frustrated in this Mars retrograde. We're going to still feel like we're getting setbacks or we can't make the progress we want in terms of our work. Dating can feel a bit more, I want to say, wishy-washy or non-direct. So I do want to give you a heads up on that. I'll dive deeper into this very soon. On January 8th, Mercury enters Capricorn, and this is going to shift how we communicate and how we think. We're going to focus more on the material plane. We're going to focus on more earthly pleasures. We're going to focus more on work and what we need to do to reach the goals that we want to reach. How can we plan ahead? What does this look like? But then how can we also ground ourselves in rituals? Then on January 13th, we have a full moon in Cancer at 23 degrees. I'll have an entire episode on this. Then on January 19th, Aquarius season begins, shifting our collective energy to feel more future-oriented, community-focused, and really tuning into the intellectual stimulation that we're craving. On January 29th, we'll have a new moon in Aquarius at 9 degrees. I'll have a whole episode on this, so stay tuned for that. On January 29th, the nodes shift from Aries and Libra into Virgo and Pisces. Really, really important to remember. The North Node will enter Pisces and the South Node will enter Virgo. This will be a huge, huge shift in energy. Collectively, we're going to focus more towards moving into a more empathetic state, more so following our emotions, our spirituality, our growth through how we can imagine the world, how can we dream up something bigger. Whereas with the South Node in Virgo, we're going to release a lot in terms of perfectionism, things that are holding us back in our day-to-day life, that are keeping us stuck, our doubts, our limiting beliefs. This is going to be a huge shift. I'll be talking a lot more about this in the free 2025 workshop. I'll leave a link to that. Yeah, this is going to be huge in terms of the astrology of 2025. We end off the month on January 30th with Uranus in Taurus stationing direct. This can give us some sudden insights and breakthroughs around our money, finances, self worth, self value, material possessions. Great to take note of. Now, I do want to give you a heads up though that January's astrology can still be great. It can still be a really reflective time, especially when it comes to work and how we date. But also, we're going to feel a bit uncomfortable mid month because the sun will be opposing Mars in Cancer retrograde. Now, when I see this, I will say we're going to be faced in January with this decision, this change that we need to make. We could be confronted by someone about maybe our living situation, perhaps our work life, or understanding how we are different from our family, how we are maybe getting challenged by our family or bosses or mentors, and how this can potentially change how we approach our work life, where we live, but also how we take care of ourselves emotionally. Great to consider and keep in mind. I will say, because Mars will be retrograde for all of January, this is a month for us to take a step back, to re examine. I don't think this is a great month if you have a business to launch anything brand new, just because it can feel a bit overwhelming. It can feel like it's a bit trickier to get things off the ground. This is a great month to go back to previous projects or previous things you were working on and rework them, re strategize, and figure out, okay, what do I need to change based on this? That can feel super, super helpful to do right now. Now, diving into the astrology of this week, on the 30th, we have a new moon in Capricorn. Go listen to that exclusive episode on the new moon in Capricorn because that one was actually very juicy, very helpful. This is a great new moon to manifest with. And we're doing this in the Moon Sign Creative Community. If you want to join in, replays are available. This is a very powerful manifestation ritual for 2025. If you don't have a manifestation practice, though, continuously throughout the year, this is a great time to start one. And manifestations are amplified in community. This is because we have all this energy coming together with people who have similar energies as us, with people who have similar vibrations with us. And coming together is going to make you feel more enriched, more powerful, just more uplifted. And this in turn is going to help you see more external change. When our internal state changes and shifts, then our external life starts to change. And this is helpful because sometimes you can't see what internal change needs to take place unless you see something externally. So it's a push and pull in the best possible way because we need each other to see what needs to change in our life. We need other people to see, okay, what else can come about? What else can flourish? So if that interests you, if you want to dive deeper and also just have more fun and be in community and meet like-minded people and friends, then come join us. It's going to be super fun. Now, on January 2nd, we have Mars in Leo retrograde trine the North Node in Aries. So I see this for us as really getting clear on our desires and what we want for the future by going backwards, by taking a step back and examining our work life and our dating life and figuring out, okay, what am I feeling aligned to? What is fulfilling me right now? How can I focus on what fulfills me and nourishes me? I see this energy more so as us really getting to know ourselves in a deeper way, really nurturing our inner child. What did you want to do as a kid? And how can you do more of that? How can you embrace that? Really good to keep in mind for this date. Then on January 3rd, Venus enters Pisces. And this is such a lovely transit Venus is the planet of values, it's how we show love and affection, and it is exalted in the sign of Pisces, meaning that it loves being in the sign of Pisces. Now, this energy can make us feel more romantic. This energy can make us feel more dreamy. You could feel like you're just attracted to doing more art. You could feel like you want to really be more empathetic and tune into your intuition even more. You could also feel called to really tune into your spirituality in a deeper way. This is such a lovely energy. This is so romantic, so dreamy, so uplifting, but also I would say to be cautious of rose-colored glasses because sometimes we could miss certain red flags, especially because we're in a Mars retrograde too. This can feel as though we're not seeing the full story. So please keep this in mind. Still romanticize your life. I think that's going to be super important to do. I always see Venus in Pisces as the best time to romanticize your life, to really enjoy your life, and just see the magic in your everyday life. On January 4th, we have the Sun in Capricorn sextile to Saturn in Pisces. So this is actually very, very supportive. We're feeling this all week because of that new moon in Capricorn. It was leading up to this sextile, and this is us tuning into what we're creating for our long-term goals. What are you creating for your future? What feels stable and grounded for you? I see this more so as our work life and figuring out, okay, what am I building that lasts a long time, that will help me with staying grounded, staying committed, but then also understanding which partnerships help you through this, which spiritual partnerships can help you in making these decisions, in taking this action, but also just embodying the type of person you want to become. What does that person do every day? What is part of their routine? I see this more so as listening to your intuition, listening to your calling, but then also putting in the work, knowing that there's some work that needs to take place for this, but it's going to feel a bit easier. You're going to feel like, okay, you know what steps to take in terms of this. This could feel like you have this plan in place to build something for your future, to see which systems and structures need to be put in place right now. So this is very, very supportive. Now, I do want to mention on January 5th, Mars is at 0 degrees of Leo before it retrogrades back into Cancer on January 6th. Now, Mars at 0 degrees of Leo is very intense. Because Mars is retrograde, people can react in, I would say, negative ways if they don't know how to process their emotions, they don't know how to process their anger, they're not being true to themselves, they're not being authentically them, especially with Mars and Leo. This could also look like Mars is at this critical degree, and this is helping us re-examine something that happened for you on November 5th, 2024, around this time period. So think back to what was happening for you November 5th, 2024, and we're getting a different perspective on this situation now. We're seeing things in a different light. We're understanding, okay, maybe I have to work in a different way. Maybe I have to approach this relationship in a different way. Keep this in mind. Very important to consider. Mars will retrograde back into Cancer on January 6th, and I'll go much more in depth on that on next week's episode. Yet, overall, I will say to not put so much pressure on yourself in January, because you might not get as much done as you would like. There might be delays, there might be setbacks, people could be a bit wishy-washy. It can feel like there's a lot to do, but it's a bit overwhelming. If you're still feeling burnt out and exhausted and overwhelmed, just know that that could be the Mars retrograde. Yet this is a great month, though, to focus on reflection, focus on reworking something so that you can feel more aligned, so that you can feel like you're building something that lasts. I love Capricorn season for this. Very helpful energy. And also just remind yourself that you're doing a great job. Celebrate your wins. This is really, really important to do. This is what I teach my boldest you mentees to do, because once you reinforce your wins for the last year, when you reinforce what you're doing well, that is going to shift your perspective so much, and you're going to start to see this more in your daily life. So that is the astrology of January. Please let me know what happens for you. Now I want to get into this week's episode topic of how I overcame burnout years ago, what this looks like, and how I really shifted my energy in terms of feeling more magnetic to opportunities and growth in my career. Now, years ago, in 2020 specifically, I was very, very burnt out. This is because I was working as a professor in graphic design. I was teaching first year students design process, and it was also a time when I knew I wasn't supposed to be at that job. I knew I wasn't supposed to be a traditional professor, but this was my second year teaching because I first started in 2019. I was teaching that same course. This was the second year I was teaching it. And this was before, the pandemic hit. Yet at this time, I had this huge inner voice just tell me, you're not supposed to be here. And during this time, I had launched an astrology inspired accessory line called Moon Sign Supplies. It has now transformed into my community, so I no longer have those products, which were tote bags and notebooks and pencil cases, but now I mainly have my community. Yet at that time, I really just didn't know what to do. I didn't have a way out. I was constantly looking for a way out of how can I focus more on astrology, yet I had this fear and doubt, and I just didn't feel experienced enough. I didn't feel good enough. I was constantly overwhelmed. Yet I remember I launched my YouTube channel that year in January, and I actually recorded all 12 zodiac sign videos in one day, which honestly I would never do again. That was so exhausting. Yet I felt like I had to do that at that time because I was also focused on teaching graphic design on the side, and I was also focused on some design clients at that time. So it felt overwhelming, to say the least, because I was doing a lot. I was trying to build my community. I was trying to sell my astrology products. I was trying to build my community. I was trying to really grow my business while still working other jobs. And for me, I just remember thinking, I just can't keep up with this. I was so burnt out. I was overwhelmed. I just didn't know what to do. And I just remember feeling so unhappy with my life. And I just felt so overwhelmed in terms of what I was doing. So at a certain point, I remember the pandemic hit, and it was a sign for me to quit my professor position because everything had moved online, and that was still okay with me. I was still able to teach online. Yet I realized I should just be teaching what I want to teach. I should just be teaching myself. Like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but it was more so the experience. It was me trying to help people at that time, and for me, I was no longer aligned to graphic design as much as I used to be. Even though I love it, I still love design. I love designing for myself, and I do love teaching, yet there was still something off. It was close, but not close enough. And when the pandemic hit, I just remember thinking, what am I going to do? So it was honestly a mess of a year. I think everyone could feel that about 2020. Yet I was constantly trying to promote my astrology accessory brand throughout that year, despite everything. And for me, I just remember making so much content. I hired a coach at that time, and I would essentially make a bunch of content, burn out at the end of the week, have like a crying fit. No joke. I was having mental breakdowns every single week. I just didn't know what to do. I was like so overwhelmed. I felt like I was running on this hamster wheel of exhaustion every single week. I'm like, why is this not working? Why can't I make this better? Why is this not growing? My community, my social media was at a standstill. So I wasn't getting the results I wanted, and I was trying to put so much energy and effort into this. And looking back now, I can see that very clearly that when I was studying astrology, I was still very, very in touch with my birth chart at that time. But I remember having a session with my mentor at that time, and then going back to my birth chart afterwards, and then looking at my Jupiter sign. And I'm like, oh, this is it. This is it. Because I learned that Jupiter is this beautiful planet of luck, expansion, opportunity, and growth and wisdom. However, Jupiter has a dark side. The dark side of Jupiter is burnout, exhaustion, and overwhelm. One of my mentors, a Sagittarius mind, had once said that Jupiter is like everything but the kitchen sink because you're attracting so much, and this can be so overwhelming. And for myself, I started to realize that I was doing too much. I was overwhelming myself with everything that I wanted to do and I thought I had to do. And that was burning me out every single week. It wasn't extreme burnout. I will mention this. I will say I'm not a doctor. There are extreme cases of burnout where you end up in the hospital. There are very, very extreme cases on this. But for me, it was still a very low period. I felt like I had no energy. I felt so weak. I felt depleted. Yet looking at my Jupiter sign, I'm like, this makes so much sense. Because for me, I was juggling so much. I thought I was supposed to do all these things. And I was creating content. I was working multiple jobs. I was hanging out with friends, going to networking events. I was doing so much. And I felt awful. I just felt like it was just too much for me. Luckily, intuitively, my Cancer moon sometimes knew that I had to like take a step back, have time to process. Yet it wasn't until I started to really tap into the more magnetic part of Jupiter where I started to really see that growth and those opportunities in my career. Now, for me, I have Jupiter in Leo in my 11th house. So for me, it was tuning into networking events that really nourished my soul, that really helped me feel creative and inspired and uplifted. It was also me using social media and creating something that feels very creative and authentic to me. Yet it's also understanding how to not burn out using your Jupiter sign, that you are able to attract those opportunities. And I'm going to use mine as an example. It wasn't until I started to really cut back, because you have to lean into some Saturn in your chart to cut back from Jupiter. Yet for myself, I got rid of drinking alcohol. This did take some time. This wasn't until 2022 where I cut off alcohol completely, but I started to notice I was losing energy. I was drinking so much during the pandemic. Honestly, I was really depressed. I lived alone. I still live alone, but it's just a different approach. I feel so different now than I did before. And I realize me cutting out alcohol helped me immensely, right? It's knowing how to focus your energy so that you can attract those amazing opportunities. When I really started to focus on tapping into my Jupiter in Leo, I started to attract more clients. I grew my TikTok community to over 65K. I started to get more uplifting, amazing friendships. I have some of the best nourishing friendships I've ever had in my life. Right now, I also started to realize that for me, I actually gain a lot of energy by creating. So even though I was burning out from creating content, that was just too much. A lot of anything can be overwhelming, yet we are here to create. We are human beings. We're here to create. We're all artists. We're all born as artists. Even if you don't believe you're an artist, it can look like different things. So for me, I really started to focus on this aspect. And once I started to also tap into the language of my Jupiter sign, that is when things just really took off for me. This wasn't until 2022, right? So it's been a few years. Yet it was those years that were leading up to it that made me discover what I needed to change in my life. And there's a proper way to tap into your Jupiter energy depending on where it is in your chart, which house it's in, what sign it's in, but also the aspects to your Jupiter sign. And this is what I dive into very in depth in my Maximize Your Magnetism course, activating your Jupiter sign for opportunities and growth in your career. This is for you if you really want to understand how to make 2025 your most magnetic year yet. Honestly, it's one of my most popular courses, and I wanted to share this story because it was life changing for me to really understand my Jupiter sign, because Jupiter is not only the planet of luck and expansion and opportunity, it's also the planet of belief. So when you understand where you're lucky in your life, that's going to attract so much more opportunities for you. And using it strategically in your life is going to make such a huge difference in terms of your career. I've now focused it even more on your career, and past students have really utilized it to really grow their TikTok followings. Past students have used it to share more secret offerings with their community, which made them more money, made them more sales. Past students have used it to really listen to their inner voice and see, oh, this was in alignment for me. This is what I felt lucky with, but I needed this validation to take the next step in my business or career. Past students have also gotten opportunities to speak on podcast episodes and grow their community this way, which was so exciting for me to see. And if you want me to dive into your specific Jupiter sign to look at how to really use it for your career, how to get those opportunities and make 2025 just a more exciting, lucky year for you, then I will be having a live Q&A for the course on February 6th. Mark your calendars because I'll be pulling up birth charts for this. It's going to be so much fun. If you already have the course, you have lifetime access to the course. You have lifetime access to all of the Q&As for the rest of your life. And the beauty of this Jupiter course is you get to look back on it every single year when Jupiter changes signs to see where you're getting those blessings every year. Where are you getting those opportunities every year so you can focus on that area and really maximize that growth for yourself. So I'll leave a link to that down below. I'm excited to see you there for the live Q&A. And even if you can't make it live, I will have a form for you to fill out with your birth chart info and any questions you have on your Jupiter sign so that I can help you and you still get that recording. So I'm super, super excited for it. Honestly, it's one of my most popular courses. It's life-changing, it's exciting, and please feel free to message me any questions you have about it. Now let's dive into your tarot reading for this week. So the first card out is the Knight of Pentacles reverse. So this is feeling like things are a bit stagnant right now this week, especially in terms of your finances or the foundational work you're trying to set. You could just feel like things are slowed down. You could feel like maybe you're not receiving that consistent. I'm hearing validation from someone. So I'm really seeing this energy as this is a week to turn within and to recognize your self worth and self value, to really remind yourself that you don't need another person to tell you you're beautiful, you're amazing, you're confident, you're special. You can tell that to yourself. I'm really hearing that message. It all starts with you. This is a week of us reassessing our finances. I'm seeing that as well with this card, but it's also us trying to get grounded again. Like we're in Capricorn season, which is great. However, I think with this Mars retrograde, we're still feeling a bit destabilized. Now, the next card out is the King of Cups reverse. Now, I will say, because of that new moon in Capricorn this week, we could feel like our emotions are a bit repressed. You could feel like it's harder to express your emotions or to feel your feelings. The moon is uncomfortable in the sign of Capricorn. And although I still think this is a very beneficial new moon to set intentions, to goal set, to dream bigger, can be a bit harder to tap into those emotions and to process what's happening for you. So I want you to really nourish yourself this week. Actually take time to not only give yourself these self-care practices, but also allow yourself to cry things out if you need to. Allow yourself to just be. Like, just be. Just take a moment as you walk to appreciate what's around you. Take a moment to appreciate life, to stay present, meditate, journal, do whatever is nourishing for you. That's going to feel so good to do this week. We also got the 10 of Swords, and this is feeling a bit painful. If you're still feeling a little bit tender from Chiron turning direct at the end of December, this is us kind of just exhausted and also kind of sitting with our pain, sitting with that hurt, sitting with our thoughts, recognizing that we are not our thoughts. We can exist outside of them. And also that this is a time to look ahead, to really tune into that optimism. If you feel like you're dreading the new year, if you feel like, okay, when are things getting better? I want you to focus on the present moment. I want you to focus on how can you just enjoy what is right now? How can you enjoy life right now? And the simple rituals you do every day, the simple things, that's going to help so much. I see this though as us really recognizing which limiting beliefs are holding us back, which thoughts are holding us back, which fears are holding us back. So we're getting this clarity around this. Although this new moon energy can hide a bit of these energies, I do feel like we're gaining some clarity as to what's been holding us back. Now, I asked what our major block is this week, and we got the 8 of Wands. So this is interesting. I feel like this makes a lot of sense. You could just feel like you're rushing, you feel like there's just so much to do, you're go, 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 even though you want things to be a bit slower, you want things to just happen. Yet, this is a week where you're thinking about potentially moving or traveling, and you're just not sure how to make it happen. Or you could just feel like a block is there's just too much to do and you want to escape. That's also what I'm hearing. But I also feel like this is overstimulation. Maybe you're just doing too much. And this makes a lot of sense with what I talked about in terms of Jupiter's energy and burnout. Yet I also see this as being overwhelmed with too many responsibilities and being overwhelmed with too many passions. Maybe you're just feeling super multi talented, but you just don't know how to focus that energy. I asked us what would help us with this block. How can we overcome this block? And we got the Hanged Man. So this is taking a pause, this is taking a step back, this is looking at a different perspective and kind of just tuning into, wow, I just needed to see this in a different light. I just needed to hear this in a different way. That can be life changing. Sometimes we need to hear something, we need to hear a message over and over and over again before we change our actions or we change our perspective. And this is because sometimes someone's way of explaining something can resonate with us more. Find people that really inspire you, find people that really uplift you, and tune into that energy. But I really see this as us also just taking a step back and knowing like sometimes you don't have to do anything. Sometimes you don't have to actually do more. Most of the time, you just need to rest and believe in yourself and know that you're okay. You're safe. Like, please remind yourself you're okay, you're safe, you are loved, you're worthy. It's okay to want more out of life, but how can you remind yourself that you already have everything you need? You already are at a good place, right? We don't want like toxic growth. I think that's really important. I know I talk about growth a lot with Jupiter, yet it's also recognizing your innate ability already. It's recognizing your innate gifts, which is the beauty of astrology. It's recognizing what you already have, what you're already capable of. I asked for a clarifier around this Hanged Man, and we got the Chariot card. So I see us really focusing on our health this month, but also this week. So there could be something where you need to listen to your intuition about a health situation. Of course, I am not a doctor. This is not medical advice, but if you feel off this month, please get it checked out or please like tune into what would be better for your health. I'm really hearing that we need to listen to our intuition about our bodies. And I also see that we're having a lot of conversations around taking intuitive action. This makes a lot of sense with Mars moving into Cancer, retrograding back into Cancer after January 6th. So keep this in mind, but I really see us prioritizing our health even more. This also makes sense with dry January if you're planning to do that. Our oracle cards are Love Your Dark Side Too. So if there's a part of you that's repressing a part of yourself, how can you show that part of yourself more love and compassion? How can you forgive yourself? How can you indulge? How can you not beat yourself up over a part of yourself? How can you just embrace it? Live authentically. We also got curiosity. So this is a month to tune into your curiosity. This is a month to really see what sparks your joy, see what really you want to learn more of, and also how can this be a superpower? How can you get to know someone better? How can you get to know yourself better? How can you get to know and study something that brings you more joy and excitement and flow? The last card out is Coming Together. So I see this as a month of us tuning into connecting with someone in a deeper way. Yet ultimately, I will say with a Mars retrograde, it might not be the best time to date. Yet that doesn't mean you can't date. But I do see this as us learning more about ourselves through another person. And this is ultimately helping us come back to ourselves. We are all connected. I am you, and you are me, and we need to recognize how we are all connected. And this is going to help us so much more in terms of our paths forward, in terms of how we can help more people and how can we just stay aligned to our path in life. So I really hope this helped, friend. I'm excited for you. Happy 2025. I also posted your 2025 horoscopes. I have the extended version on my VIP membership, but I also have the free version as well. So I'll leave a link to that down below if you want to watch your 2025 horoscope for your rising sign and sun sign. Please let me know how they are for you, if they resonate, because it really helps me out. And I just want to know that it is helping you in terms of your path forward. And if you'd like a private birth chart reading with me or a private 2025 reading with me, I'm now booking for February of 2025. I'll leave a link to that down below. And if you want to check out the Maximize Your Magnetism course, activating your Jupiter sign for opportunities and growth in your career, I'll leave a link to that. Thank you so much for listening, friend. I'm sending you so much love. Just know that the universe has your back. With peace and love, take care.